You'll just have to like straight over. Okay, sounds like this.
All right, we're live.
But yeah.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Sorry for the late delay getting started, but appreciate your patience. We're here for today's special meeting for the Ad hoc Advisory Committee for the Resource Conservation Districts. And today is Friday, December 7th, and meeting commences at 10:17 a.m. So
December 9th.
December 9th, sorry, thank you. Friday, December 9th. So we'll move on to item number 2, which is the roll call by the commission clerk. And Tammy, could you take the roll?
Andy Lyle.
Here.
Heather Conklin.
Here.
Ann Baldridge. Marty Martava is absent. Amy Reed. Absent. Frank Pilliker.
Here.
Darcy Cook.
Here.
Don Butts.
Present.
Dave Neeson, absent. Yes, there's a quorum of 6 present.
Thank you. And we'll just note for the record too, that we also have Alex, our council virtually attending, and Michaela Peters with San Diego LAFCO also virtually attending, and Mr. Gary Aran, a member of the public, participating as well. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We'll move on to item number 3, which is the agenda review by the moderator. I have no changes to the agenda, so we will skip on to item number 4, which is public comment. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to provide comments on a non-agenda topic germane to the Ad hoc Advisory Committee. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and I will check with Tammy and or Michaela, who could inform us if there's anybody wishing to speak at this time.
No public comments received.
Perfect, thank you.
Oh,
Yeah, please, Gary.
Gary Aran, General Manager, Valley Center Municipal Water District, also been for. I'm here today because of interest in your proceeding here, but what really brought me here today was I found out that from my customers that some of them who had landscape audits scheduled have received notice from the Water Authority that those have been canceled and have been rescheduled. I dug deeper into it. And what I found out was it's over a contract issue with Water Authority and Mission Resource Conservation District. The bottom line is we're entering a drought. These services are critical, not only to landscape folks, but also agricultural people. And so whoever provides the service, we need to work this out to make sure the service gets out there. We have good information that probably by the middle of next year, we're going to be in a drought cutback reduction. So any information that gets out, I don't care which resource conservation district, but we need to clear the way so that these services are available to our customers, our members. That's all I have to say.
Good, thanks so much, and thank you for participation. And I think that's the emphasis of why we're all here to have that discussion, and I think we'll be a little more fruitful in that dialogue in the next coming agenda items. So appreciate you being here and providing those comments. And I'll move us on to our business items, which is 5A. 5A is the approval of action minutes for our first meeting, October 11th, 2022. We have a motion by Frank Pilliker, second by Don Butts. Tammy, could you do a roll call vote for us, please?
sure. Don Butts.
Yes.
Darcy Cook.
Yes.
Frank Pilliker.
Yep.
Ann Baldridge.
Yes.
Heather Conklin.
Yes.
Andy Lyle.
Yes.
Have 6 in favor, 0 opposed. The motion carries.
Thank you. That will move us on to item 5B, defining the resource conservation districts. This was brought up as at our last meeting to help define in detail how RCDs are structured, financed, and operated to better understand their purpose and function. And I know Heather and Don, you brought this up on how stressful and important this was to kind of get our hands around this, to provide these definitions before we commenced on our work. So, but perhaps I can pass the floor over to you guys and take it from here.
Yeah, it's the easiest way to do that is the whole document.
Do that last document I sent you.
So this is the old version. Yeah, these are other. see on here has made some edits to it, so I'm gonna turn it over to Anne actually to say. Okay.
I can, I'd have to like take a minute to look at it to even remember what I commented on.
So just basically, you know, the overview is really, you know, a lot of the steps pulled from like RCD, other relevant RCD resources to provide the language in here, but you know, the big chunks are why RCDs matter, the history. Again, you know, RCDs were designed to focus on, you know, they're local organizations that are serving local needs. What local needs look like, you know, are a little different district to district. And so if you scroll down,
Can you speak a little louder too? I'm pretty sure we might have trouble with the audio.
okay. And really what RCDs are under Division 9, is that better? So really, it's just, it's a walkthrough just of the, you know, kind of big picture piece of what RCDs do, why they were created, what the function is for them. And then I think added information about towards the bottom.
Yeah, that was from me. Or that was from Anna. That's not on there now. It was basically overview the structure, the financing. This is a working document that's sent out in Spokane, and we reviewed it. It's on a Google Drive.
And
One
here,
second, one second. We're having,
Yeah, the
And
voice
here-
is very quiet.
Yeah, because otherwise we could go.
You have to kind of speak louder somehow, or if you want to sit closer to it.
We can look closer.
Uh,
Once you guys look down there,
we can just all speak to the table now. What do you think?
to like roll,
Yeah, because I think it's just kind of too quiet and everyone kind of has to speak up. Alex, if any time online that you can't hear us, can you just let us know at that moment? You don't have to text me, just let the group know.
All right, so if you scroll, you know, down, I think it's a couple pages from what I recall, it's been a little bit more. You know, again, just some of the kind of services that RCDs, you know, have provided. And then, you know, of course, Don's, you know, work on AB 1902 is so important. And so, you know, referencing that because that's really shifted, again, the language in terms of the services and the scope of what RCDs, you know, do. Has expanded. And of course, you know, in the current climate crisis with current state mandates, you know, the role of RCDs is much more important even than it was originally. It's been expanded. And so RCDs, you know, we play a critical role both at the local level and at the state level to achieving those climate change goals.
I'm not sure how
So, like, yeah, I don't. And then I'll turn it over to. Yeah. Sorry, Paul.
I'll just add, with the revision in Division 9, it outlays very clearly the scope. And I think we need to keep that in mind when we move forward and addressing service delivery to make sure that we're in compliance with the state law, or at least the intent of the state law. So, and that's our citing authority, no different than water districts, no different than fire districts have their citing authority. It gives them the parameters they operate under. My reason for wanting to see us start with this definition is because we need to understand moving forward, are we within our powers? And in the work that all these districts do, the 3 districts combined are within those powers. And I think it was important to share. We're not stepping outside of our area from a scope perspective. I think the issue, jumping ahead, but the issue is jurisdictional boundaries. Because to quote Simon King, you know, boundaries matter. And but I thought having the definitions out there, what that means, where we get our authority, how we're established, that's all. That's a touchstone we need to build off of all future relationships.
Well, it sounds like the framework of your guys' existence, if you guys put your heads together and collaborated on what those definitions and functions and so forth are, which I think is a good first stepping stone to help not just this body understand what you guys do and how you do it, but all obviously our body of work, what this committee was set up to do. Perhaps, this being an informational item today, and some of us are looking at this document for the first time, and we had some issues with the distribution of it in the last couple of days. Perhaps we can, once we get that clarified with the final document with Ann's comments and so forth, perhaps we can keep this as an agenda item for our next meeting. We can distribute this document for full review by the other committee members and the members of the public to provide their comments and or concerns. And then perhaps we can use it as an actual item on our next meeting to, for lack of a better term, memorialize it. If that's best and appropriate from the committee standpoint.
I think that's very appropriate. And also, by reading into the record, for lack of better words, the next MSR, because one of the things came out of the recent MSR was the fact that we were operating outside of our authorities. I'm hoping that this gets read into the record, becomes LAFCO's benchmark for measuring what we do. And again, what's listed in the new division are areas we can work in, not necessarily mandates to work in. So it's based off of, and both you ladies have said it really well, that it's what the local district feels are the needs based off of its district's input from its constituents and the problems that the board sees that needs to be addressed. No different than any other special district governance process.
So I'll give you the Word document, you can distribute it.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Well,
I have a list here too from Amy. I don't know if this is the appropriate, but just kind of a list of things we've done and like in the past and with MOUs with our neighboring RCDs. She says here she's not able to make it today. A list of services our district provides, whether directly or indirect through memorandum of understanding with neighboring RCDs or as a member of the Upper San Luis Rey Groundwater Management Authority. And yeah, we all know what needs to happen in our districts, right? So I think that local influence is important. But water management related to water conservation and distribution, watershed planning and management, water quality protection and enhancement, soil erosion, erosion stabilization, wildlife enhancement. Some of the wildlife, we have conservation easements that were funded through endowments basically. And so we're managing that money and then kind of taking, interest used to be better with the bank, it was kind of helping fund itself. But so we're funding those projects through those endowments. Agricultural enhancement, including land conservation, repair and sustainment of riparian habitat, conservation easement management, like I spoke of there, irrigation management, forest stewardship, fuels management, and education and outreach. So that's a list, Amy.
and maybe I should have stopped you ahead. That's probably what is into our next agenda item with our list of services, but maybe you need to read it again. But
Okay. Oh, sorry. I
no,
didn't
it's
see the
okay.
services part.
But generally, let's just move in that direction as suggested and affirmed by this body to, as you guys said, it's a working document at this point in time. So let's get the final draft from the three RCDs perspective. We'll get that distributed to the full committee and the public. And then at our next meeting, we will put it on an actionable item to memorialize it and get it into the administrative record for both this body and LAFCO.
And I just want to say, I agree with your suggestion, Don, that it should be a really, that should be the basis for the MSR for evaluating RCDs moving forward, because I think, there were some things in the first version of the MSR that didn't quite light up with the reality. So I really think that that's super important. So I just want to underscore that. Thank you, Don.
Perfect. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, now I'll move us on to 5C. Which is the Resource Conservation District boundaries and services. This is to discuss resource conservation boundaries and services. And this was a part of the second item in our working agenda that we previously formulated to identify any inconsistencies between boundaries and current service activities. And so I know we tasked all of you to provide those boundaries and or list of services. And so I think for today's discussion, since we're kind of on an abbreviated time frame to get out of here by 11:30, is, perhaps we don't need to kind of go over the boundaries and the maps, but maybe we can kind of highlight the list of services of which each RCD does and programs and so forth. And so I don't know if one of you want to kick it off first, or and I have your guys' documents that Duke can bring up that you guys provided me that listed those services. And do you want to maybe just take a start for us? It's the document from Greater San Diego. It's the first email I sent you this morning. Yeah, it's
Does it
that
look
one.
like that
Yep,
one?
it's that one.
Okay, so this document goes over the services that we provide within our boundary, the services that we provide outside of our boundary through MOU, and then there might be a third category, but we'll see when we get there. So our kind of core areas are education, pollinator health, support the farmers and ranchers, and forest health and fire prevention. We have funding to do a watershed education program, specifically within the San Diego Bay watershed. We coordinate a range of different pollinator programming in partnership with the San Diego Pollinator Alliance, or it's Pollinator Alliance. There. And so we've created a San Diego Native Milkweed project. We're starting to work more on working lands to get pollinator habitat established there. And we've done a lot of outreach and education events, workshops. We have a demonstration garden at the San Diego Fair, various activities through that program. It's for farmers and ranchers through our carbon farming program. We provide technical assistance on a range of topics. We've had carbon farming demonstration projects at 3 sites within our district. Maybe you can scroll down a little bit. Just some of the examples of the technical assistance that we provide. We're also doing some targeted support for disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. And then we have a range of outreach and education as well. We're working on the San Diego Agricultural Planning Program, which is the SALT project, and partnership with LAFCO, with Mission, and other partners too. That is a countywide program headed up by LAFCO. We also are the lead partner on a Prop 84 project to remove invasive species from the San Diego River. We manage the San Diego County Fire, the Fire Safety Council of San Diego County, which operates several different programs with outreach and education to help new community fire safe councils get established. This organization is a separate entity. It's a 501c3 that's managed by the RCD. The Fire Safe Council doesn't actually have any of its own staff. All the programs and services are staffed by the RCD. It has its own board of directors. We host bi-monthly meetings for the board and the general membership, which includes community fire safe councils, of which there are about 40. But various fire agencies in the county and other interested stakeholders. Support the community wildfire protection plan process. We manage some homeowner assistance programs to help people create and maintain defensible space, and we hold education workshops and attend several outreach events. And then we have a kind of wider ranging fire prevention and forest health program where we are working on improving forest health, increasing wildfire resilience in the county. And on that point, we are the grantee for a Department of Conservation Regional Forest and Fire Capacity Program. This is a multi-year program where the goal is to increase capacity to prevent wildfire and increase forest health. So we're working with lots of different partners on demonstration projects, trying to do some workforce development programming to get more people skilled and able to prevent wildfire and work on forest health projects. And then a key outcome of that project is creating projects that Combat Patrol Squad hoped for. We're in the early stages of organizing a prescribed burn association. And SDG funds us to organize community education projects in Woodside Russian. Let's see, then we have some programs within our sphere of influence, which are those three there. We have a farm, that's a working farm and an education farm called Wild Willow. It's right down near the border. Right near there is a community garden that we manage called the Chuan River Valley Community Garden. This garden has 210 garden plots for individuals, as well as 10 quarter-acre plots for people who are interested in getting started in farming. And then the Sweetwater Community Garden in Bonita. So this is a newer community garden that started about 3 years ago. And then that third category there, services provided outside of our boundary through an MOU with LAFCO approval. Some of our projects around the forest health and fire prevention program are in the Upper San Luis Rey area, and we have MOUs with, or an MOU with a couple of addendums to deliver this work. So the San Diego's last mixed conifer forest project is up in the Palomar Mountain area. And this is working with several different landowners to create resiliency in a contiguous kind of fashion. We call it the Palomar Collaborative. The RFFC program does kind of go off. Some of the demonstration projects are within the Upper San Luis Rey area, one on Palomar Mountain, and some projects that the La Jolla tribe are doing. And then our chipping and defensible space assistance programs and our wildfire education sometimes does go up into that area too. So this is programs for homeowners to help them with their defensible space. Under the carbon farming topic, we also have an MOU with Upper San Luis Rey to provide technical assistance, such as soil sampling, as well as irrigation assessments through a newer grant that we have. And then lastly, on the pollinator health topic, we did agree and put an MOU in place because of maybe about a year ago now, the California Association of RCVs called RCVs together to create a block grant application for the Wildlife Conservation Board to do a statewide pollinator health project. That grant application is still under review, and we're awaiting a final decision. So that work hasn't actually started in the San Luis Rey area. And then the last topic there, project in collaboration with other RCDs within our boundaries beyond the SALT program. Again, I mentioned earlier, it's the project led by LAFCO in collaboration with Mission RCD and several other partners. We are working on developing programs and submitting grants, often in partnership and together, such as the Carbon Farming Hub. A recent BFA application went in to work together with Mission RCD, Inland Empire, and RRCD to create carbon farm plans for farms within that Carbon Farming Hub region. There's a couple of other non-RCD partners involved in that application too. And then a crop swap program, Mission RCD leads another project like this, and we were inspired by that project. And Darcy's been working closely with us through the SALT program to develop a crop swap program. So that is out for application now. We're waiting to hear back. We've talked a little bit about collaborating on pollinator health programs, and I think just in general, all three RCDs have that spirit of collaboration, as well as at this countywide level, but also at this statewide level. CARCD as an umbrella organization is very supportive of RCDs and gives us lots of opportunities to do things together through block grants and otherwise. Just quickly on a statewide level, our RCD has a seat on the RMAC committee, which is held by my colleague Joel Kramer. So this is a rangeland management advisory group. That it? May have missed a few things on maybe.
Well, it's a good summary.
Yeah, very good summary and very robust list of services and programs. So thank you so much for putting that together. So perhaps we can pass the baton over to Mission and do if you could bring up that last document I sent to you. Thank you.
And you can
took me to shame. I put everything in a matrix. I didn't think
that's
more that
okay.
way, so I appreciate the level of detail. But you can see here, I've broken it down by agriculture, by
I don't think we can
landscape.
hear, try to speak up just a little more.
Yeah, because I can't even hear
How
from
about
here.
I take the mask off?
Yeah.
Can you hear me better now?
I think so, sorry.
Right, so, in this matrix, I've broken it down by agriculture, by landscape, and by natural resources. We'll start with the agriculture. So I've listed the program where we currently have funding. So slightly different take than Ann, so it's a little more discreet here. But we currently have a RCD, some funding from their block grant for the NRCS Regional Equity Cooperative Agreement. And we hope to work with some of the local tribes because of some of the work that my board director Scott Murray has done with other tribal areas here and working with agriculture. I reached out to Amy specifically with the Palma Valley, Palma Tribal Farm. I'm not sure that's going to be there, but that's listed on there. They were probably going to go with a composting workshop, and that's not really supported under the NRCS best practices. And the Climate Science Alliance is doing that in March anyway, so that's a little bit old information there. So the CDFA, we have a Healthy Soils Incentive Program. And so that's something we are collaborating with Diego and Joel and I have been in communication with this because we don't have one of those Healthy Soils programs this year. And so part of our funds will be expended for doing workshops, whether the demonstration or assistance with applications. We plan to start that up again in the February, maybe March timeframe. So no sense in limiting the support to just one district. If that information can go to any of the growers and really talk if there's any issues about that. Joel and I have been about workshops. So then I have the BESA. This is the multinational exchange for agriculture. This is a program that's been going. It's winding down. It'll be done in March, and it's an agroecology course that's funded by USDA, and that was done during the beginning of COVID. It was just basic training on agroecology and basic farming practices. And then, so NRCS, we have a new RCPP, Regional Conservation Partnership Program. This is the classic one. This has taken a long time to get through the contracting requirements. It's still at NRCS National for approval, and this would be for doing conservation primarily with ag water conservation within more than our district, because this is supported by some of the member agencies from the San Diego County Water Authority. And then we have the Strategic Growth Council one. This is the SALT program that Ann mentioned, and we are now a partner under this, supporting this NACO program. And then for the San Diego County Water Authority, we have the Ag Water Management Program, and this is for evaluations and assessments of irrigation assistance for cooking that, sorry. And then we also support Rancho California Water with an agreement with Team RCD, and this is for 2 things, for both crop swap and for their AIEP program. And then we go to landscape, and that was the last one, right? Rancho California. Yeah, the next page. Thank you. At the far left, it's cut off, but that doesn't matter. That just says landscape and natural resources. So we have 2 main programs under landscape. One is to support MoDOT. That's the Metropolitan Water District of Orange County. And that is with their, it's a rebate program. It has a really long name, but it's basically for their smart timers and their turf removals, their spray to drip, and their rotating nozzles, rebate program. So we go and do an evaluation and provide that information back to MoDOT to support the rebates. And then with the San Diego County Water Authority, we have, we recently had the Water Smart Field Services Program. This is where we do home and landscape water use surveys and provide a report. So for natural resources, we just wound down the SANDAG and WCP, Arundo management programs. And so currently we still have some extending services that were originally a part of that. One of those is an MOU with the San Juan, City of San Juan Capistrano and the San Juan School District. And this is also for a retreat there. And then with Inland Empire RCD, just like Ann said, we also support the NRCS post-disaster recovery in our region. This just started this year for us. And then we have for the Department of Water Resources, we have basically this is SEP funds. This is not actual programmatic efforts. It's funds to continue to support the Aruba management because with WCB you often have a really long-term sort of monitoring and continued mitigation. And so both the SEP funds and the Vista School endowment there are to support those long-term evaluations of Aruba because it's a constant mess. You never really quite get rid of it. And so I think that lines everything down. Any questions?
Thank you for putting that together, both of you. And perhaps maybe Andy at this time, maybe you could regurgitate.
Yeah, sorry, I saw, I
No
think
problem.
on item C, I saw boundaries and I stopped reading there. I don't know why. So sorry about that.
For the administrative record, we could get what you guys do, so.
Yeah, so this is a list of services our district provides, whether directly or through a memorandum of understanding with neighboring RCDs, or as a member of the Upper San Luis Rey Groundwater Management Authority. Water management related to water conservation and distribution, watershed planning and management, water quality protection and enhancement, soil erosion and erosion stabilization, wildlife enhancement, agricultural enhancement, including land con. There's a typo in there. I'm not sure what that word is. Repair and sustainment of riparian habitat, conservation easement management. So that conservation easement management and wildlife enhancement in our district are kind of in combination with endowments, as I explained earlier, for the arroyo toad, endangered species, irrigation management, forest stewardship, fuels management, and education and outreach. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys all putting those together. I mean, I think it's really helpful to kind of just get a perspective of what you do and what services and programs you provide, and the partnerships that you do with that. So I can just say from my perspective, not being intimately familiar with your guys' worlds or organizations, it's pretty clear to me that what your programs and services provide have vastly expanded from what the inceptions of what RCDs were created for way back in the 40s. And so it's good to see that those communities and programs are being provided in a more robust way and in a more expanded way. And so, which probably leads to our next item. If there's, yeah. if
I
there's
have
any
a couple questions.
Yes,
I'm
please.
sorry, I'm kind of new to all this.
Yep.
So, so I'm assuming that any RCD that does anything outside of the county has an MOU with the RCD that's on the outside, you know, like whether it's Inland Empire or whatever. Okay. All right. And then my next question is, I've seen this up there a couple times from a couple different RCDs. What is a disadvantaged farmer and rancher?
Okay, well, there's different definitions. There are different definitions for that, depending if it's USDA or CDFA. But basically, well, there's also historically underserved. So primarily, it's people of color or people who live in a community that has a very low income. And Heather might be able to provide another. Again, it depends what agency you're working with. The actual.
Well, I was just gonna add on that most farmers and ranchers are disadvantaged because they have to deal with the government. And all I can say is that no matter who you are, colored, white, whatever, you gotta start with a lot of money to make a little bit. Ask me how I know.
Understood.
So I don't know. I don't know. I kind of have a hard time with that. I think it's kind of weird. Sorry.
I think
I
it's
live in
like,
Lakeside. It's different.
yeah, I think it's also trying to provide services to people who don't always find it easy to access those services. So really working hard to
Okay.
to reach
Yeah.
people who don't.
See, that is, I like that. Yeah.
that definition, I think, is all three of our organizations. It's reaching those that are underserved. And that's biggest trigger there is not having the inroads to communication, regardless of race or anything else or economic ability. It's the ability to access information to make the environment and their business operation, farmers, ranchers, and forest stewards, giving them the tools to be more successful, and that makes us all successful.
And I totally
Cool.
concur with that definition.
Yeah, okay, I can take that. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to figure it all out and just learn what's going on here. So,
Not a problem.
yeah, but just from my perspective, after looking at these large laundry lists of what you guys do, you're really busy, you do a lot, and so, thank you.
I think this was interesting for me. Can I just jump in?
Yeah, please, any other, please.
I just say this was enlightening for me because I didn't know all the stuff that you guys do. And when it's presented like this on screen like that with the two agencies,
Three.
three agencies, you weren't on screen, but the three agencies, each agency really has its area of specialization. And this was like so clearly, like, it was like,
Is there
to be
a
able to
way-
do that.
Yeah, is there a way we can get a spreadsheet with what everybody does? And like, so stuff they do, stuff to do over here, put it all in one spreadsheet and then send it out to us or something like that, or some type of a white paper,
We can-
something
We can
to,
coordinate some sort of document.
yeah, it'd be nice, because then
Puts it
having
all-
it all in front of us, and then you kind of compare too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or just like areas of specialty with that.
Yeah,
example.
something, just, yeah.
'Cause that way it also
make it-
allows for us to know, so we
Well,
can reach
I
out.
think you hit on it, though. It's not only areas of specialty, but the commonalities,
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
because I really think both those will paint a different picture than we all reflect.
I think that's a big point. And also one thing that I didn't mention, because Anna had mentioned so eloquently on her list, was a lot of things that we do that are not funded. So we also have a community garden. We also look at our fire service, also a small fire service. Remember the Pollinator Alliance, pollinator habitat corridor, they're based on some of the work that you guys have done. So there is definitely interaction, and there is definitely collaboration and working on what other people's strengths are, or the best. I wouldn't say weaknesses, but for example, new areas that we're trying to get into, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Yeah. And that's what we do RCD live with RCD.
Just for a point of ease, I think if you were to have all the services listed, then the RCDs up here, and then like a little check mark, like having little boxes, and then, okay, all three RCDs do this, check them all off, or colored or something. That way, visual, I'm a
Yeah.
visual person,
Me
so
too.
I'm sorry I interrupted
No,
you.
we
I
can put,
apologize.
we can put something together, Frank.
My comment would probably be more appropriate in the next one, but I'm going to share. And this is an experience we had, and I know the question was asked by Frank, do we have agreements? But I think one of the things, educational pieces that I took away with Keen coming in and Keen's perspective as the executive director is that not only do we need to have the agreement, but that also requires LAFCO. And when we're cross boundaries, it requires LAFCOs from both counties. And I think that's an educational issue that I think LAFCO needs to share with all the special districts out there. And for example, we are working outside of our district. I'll lay our cards on the table. Because the county board of supervisors came to us and said, would you take over this Tijuana River Garden, the Tijuana Community Garden for us? Because it's beyond our parks and rec staff's ability to do, and this is what you guys do. And we entered into it, got committed, we've invested in it, only to find out we were under the impression that this was okay. And the other part to that is understanding where RCDs come from. And I think we need to lay that on the table as well. I don't know how long I've been on the board now, but it's been a long time. So going back at least 10, 15 years, the impression by my fellow board members, and this was reflected up and down the state, one of the reasons why I got involved in the state association was we were quasi-government. And we are not quasi-government, we are government. And so there was a very entrepreneurial approach to doing business. And I commend you guys for pursuing outside and what you guys have done. But not having that perspective, now we look back and we're in violation of a variety of government codes. And I think that's the crux for me is, you know, we need to educate ourselves, but also educate up and down the state. That's my mission. But I think our experience here should be shared up and down the state. Once we're done resolving and developing what we have here, I think it's a model for us to share with the rest of the state, whatever we end up going and what direction we go.
I think, you know, can I just add on to what you're saying? So, you know, I think with that, you know, with what you're saying, I mean, yeah, I think there's a challenge here. And I think this kind of goes back to the first, you know, piece that we had about defining RCDs is because, you know, while we are government, the funding structure and the operations look very different. We're essentially operationally a nonprofit in the public sector, which is kind of a weird status to have, to be quite blunt. And so as a special district, we don't have the benefit of receiving rates. We don't have any sort of other actual funding mechanism.
You bring up a good point. I'll get on my soapbox because we haven't asked. We need to ask because if we're that vital and we are to the work we do in conservation, which impacts all the other special districts and the cities. Let's be honest, we serve unincorporated areas. And who benefits from this? The incorporated areas downstream. So water quality improved upstream, habitat improved upstream benefits everybody downstream. Where's our community gardens? In communities which are the incorporated areas. I mean, I really think that our sphere of influence should be co-located with our boundary. And the second part to that is if we got 1%, if we got 1/10 of the percent, 1/10 of 1% of the 1% tax base, okay, that would put us in a good spot. That's not taking a whole lot of money from other special districts and everything else out there.
And then there are RCDs who have gone to their county board of supervisors and asked for baseline funding, like San Mateo RCD, and been successful at that. So, you know, I know, like, I don't know if we're unique in that we're a county that has 3 RCDs. I don't know if other counties.
No, there are other counties that have multiple RCDs. And at one time, this county had 15 RCDs.
Right, yeah.
Okay,
But yeah, I mean, so that's something that we should think about too, is, you know, asking the county for support.
I didn't mean to,
Yeah.
I think I rolled into the
It's
next
okay.
section too much.
It's
but I-
fine. It's a good transition. So just.
Yeah, back in the days of when it was soil conservation service, it was like tractors and like you could lend tractors
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah.
bulldozers to farmers who were trying to develop the land coming out of the 40s. So it was, I mean, you're not going to move a tractor from Palma Valley to Tijuana or the River Valley or wherever you need to get the work done. But yeah, now it's a huge amount of work that's being done through the RCDs.
And we remember that soil conservation districts came out of federal law, and this was the state's version to address it locally.
Mhm.
So, you know, because in our state, we're very different because we're actually embedded in state law. Other districts, they reference a federal statute, and that's where they get their citing authority. And they have a very strong relationship with NRCS, the National Resource Conservation Service. We realize Gary's here, you may not know all that. I just wanted, NRCS, the National Resource Conservation Service, I don't know if you were aware of that.
Okay.
Okay.
All within the formula.
Okay, well, it sounds like we've teed up our discussion for the next one, but before we officially move on, perhaps maybe I could check with Tammy or Michaela to see if there's any members of the public that wish to speak on our discussions for 5B and 5C.
I received no public comments.
Thank you. Okay, that will move us on to officially to 5D, which is Government Code 56133, which I think as your discussion just a second ago kind of teed up where we're headed with this. And so just very briefly, for any members of the public or committee members that aren't familiar with Government Code 56133, that's essentially a LAFCO statute that requires any public agency that is looking to extend new or existing services without their or outside of their boundaries to get LAFCO approval. And there is also a list of exemptions that's included in that statute, and it's LAFCO's assertion that through those exemptions as well, that they be given LAFCO green light to be disclosed as exempt. So I think, as you guys indicated, by providing those lists of services and programs, and from our earlier comments from the public, I mean, I think this is kind of the focus point of why this group has been put together. It's quite obvious that, as I've indicated earlier, that what you guys do with programs and services, it's very robust. It's expanded vastly over the years. And then from my perspective, some of the programs and services from a two-dimensional standpoint, they don't see any boundaries. And as we've had comments earlier today, members of the public and community members or private property owners, they don't see boundaries either. They just want the programs and services delivered. And I think that's our intention here as well. And I want to put that on the record as well, is that LAFCO is not here to jeopardize what you do. I mean, we want to make it successful. However, saying that, it's a delicate balance where we want to respect the rules and regulations that are out there as it pertains to LAFCO. So this will probably be our discussion of most importance, I think. I certainly want to give the floor over to you guys to kind of see where it's best and appropriate to have that dialogue. But again, I really think the focus of this group is to find that delicate balance of allowing you to do what you guys do, but doing it in a lawful way and doing it in a way that, whether it's through an MOU, whether it's through an agreement, or whatever mechanism we come up with over our next couple meetings, it's something that forms a regional partnership to provide those services, and it doesn't jeopardize at the earlier comments that we got, that put any sort of service or contract on hold, delay, or whatever. We want to make these services amenable and successful to the community, and that is ultimately the end. So I'll leave it up to you guys to open the discussion and take it from there. But that's kind of the 30,000 foot level from my perspective of what we're trying to achieve as this group.
Well, I will start with, I want to applaud Vision for the entrepreneurial approach, but that does create some heartburn for my board. I speak on behalf of the board, particularly with the recent award you were received from the County Water Authority. And they felt that that was a little disingenuous. It was felt by us, not that your actions were intended to, but it was felt by us as a board collectively. It was disingenuous not to have shared and divulged that process, that, hey, by the way, I know this has been an issue and we're in line for the next, we're in line, or we're competing for this next process without some sort of formal dialogue between the boards. So if it occurred, it didn't come to our board collectively, and that's an internal thing we'll address. We had a change of leadership in that process, so maybe that's where that lies. But moving forward, we do need to have some sort of resolution and moving forward. I can tell you the concern that the board has had, and we've been advised by legal counsel, that work being done in our district that's within our bailiwick, particularly by another governmental body, puts us in place of liability should there be an issue with the delivery of that service. Okay, because we have the authority to do that work, and there's liability to us should that work not be accomplished or there be legal issues connected to that work. Okay.
I could first speak to that briefly because I was the one who submitted that proposal. That was a very quick turnaround. And this is not necessarily justification, but just on extended vacation, the RFP was released at that time, had a 3-week turnaround time, and then had to leave for my lesson. Very quick turnaround time. I've been in communication with Jody.
I'm not expecting you to justify. I just wanted to, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot. That's not our board's intent.
I was just going to explain.
Right, no, but I appreciate the explanation, but I don't want to get into the weeds necessarily, because we could go all the way back, because, you know, you indicated that this is the first time you had seen some of this information. And I know myself and the former executive director went to Mission and shared this exact stuff you got in a PowerPoint with your board and offered mission to come to us to try to resolve, to see where we can develop some commonality. And that never occurred. So there's a lot of history that I think if we keep going back and visiting, all we're going to simply do is slow down the process. And it's going to be, you know, us as and thems and a he and she. And I don't think it's productive. I understand how we got there. And I can share back with our board that it's simply a timing issue. And that's, I think, sufficient. And we'll move forward with that.
And I agree, by the way, that Anne and Amy and I have spoken to this, Amy's not here to confirm this, but that, you know, we're all new district managers. We want to kind of move past behind. We want to move forward. We want to work together, do the best for our constituents.
And same, I'm new, obviously the new board president, you know, only since July. So, you know, stepping into this role, you know, after, you know, with so change in leadership is real. And that certainly changes, I think, the tone and again, you know, our willingness to collaborate, work with you guys in a really close way and work with Upper San Luis Rey as well in a close way because, you know, I mean, being an RCD is hard on a good day. So I think we can do, I think we can.
And our objective to serve the community is the same. So just finding the right way to do that.
Yeah, and I think learn from each other and really benefit from each other's areas of expertise. Because, you know, it's very clear that we have distinct areas of expertise and like we could learn from you guys and vice versa. Like we want to share that information. We want to make sure that everybody.
It's already happening.
Yeah, and that's great. And that's amazing.
Yeah. Like, so we have a new irrigation audit program. And so Luis from Darcy's office has trained Andy from our office in some of the more complex irrigation assessments through like so it's great to be able to do that together and trade to do other things.
And I do want to stress the importance of why it's important for LAFCO as well, because it's, you know, LAFCO exists for the orderly development of services. And it's not just RCDs. I mean, we've come across this issue with healthcare districts, with sewer districts and the Navy and all that. But I think it's important to know that it's important for us to put together something out of this body so that we don't have those issues of the past. We don't have those jurisdictional conflicts. We don't have those administrative costs that are extra to LAFCO. And at the end, worst case scenario, the legal costs that may come up, which LAFCO certainly has been a part of in the past. And so, and I think Don noted this earlier, is it is our responsibility as an agency too. This is an educational thing too. You know, not a lot of people know LAFCO. They certainly don't know what 56133 is. And so it's our responsibility too to kind of get out there and educate and outreach so that when agencies are kind of talking to say, hey, we want to provide these services, you know, it doesn't become second thought to say, hey, we need to call LAFCO. So
Can I just, you know, bring something up that's, you know, it's sort of been weighing on my mind, you know, with the conversation of 56133. And I think the conversation here today with the services and what RCDs are and how we function, you know, that we're a unique kind of special district. So we're not a water district, we're not a sewer district, we're not, you know, another kind of special district, we're a healthcare district, right? There's something, you know, unique about how RCDs are structured, how we operate, and again, the services and the functions that we offer, you know, and services and functions we offer. And the 56133 conversation, you know, at least from the part that I've been, you know, involved with, you know, from LAFCO, is that there's sort of an underlying assumption, or there seems to be an underlying assumption, that all services provided by any special district are the same. And I think today's conversation really highlights that, again, these are expertise services. Most of these services that we do, if not all of them, don't change, they have no impact on planning. It's really to support the community. We're not changing zoning, we're not doing any of that kind of stuff. We're not putting in, you know, infrastructure. And so these services sort of are not a concern from the planning sense. And these are specialty services. So again, if an RCD has an expertise area, you know, that means that potentially the other RCD doesn't offer that and they can benefit from working together on that. But the way that the conversation's been around 56123, as you know, as it pertains to RCD services, I don't think it makes that sort of a distinction. Again, all services are the same from special districts is sort of the underlying assumption that seems to be driving some of this conversation. RCD services are not utility services. And that's kind of.
And I appreciate that, but the services, and it's not the services we provide, it's what's within our authority to provide. And if it's a responsibility of that agency that jurisdiction to provide any and all of those services. So if there's something that's being provided by, I'll use the fire service. If an agency is providing paramedic transport, but I'm not, you know, the neighboring city isn't, and they decide they want to, well, they can also contract with that. But the responsibility for getting that work done or providing that level of service lies with that jurisdiction. So it's up to them to decide, do we develop that internally? Do we contract? Do we bring a third party in and bid it to work out? And you see that currently with the city of San Diego, they just changed ambulance services to Paul. So I appreciate the service, but the services we provide, you're right, are very different than what Gary and water districts, sewer districts provide, but it's still a service and it's their authority. And if there's a new technology that a water district needs to provide in order to provide the right level of service, it's that responsibility of that district and that board to make that decision. No different than, and I'll use this, if there's services being provided or needed in our district, then our district should be in control of how that's accomplished. I mean, that's the whole point of local control. If we decide to partner with the neighboring RCD, or we decide to contract with a third party to provide that service, or if we decide to develop internally, that's my board's responsibility. And we're responsible constituents for making sure that we're delivering the services they need. So I appreciate the entrepreneurial approach to finding solutions, but the decision-making rests with the authority having jurisdiction for that service. Not, and in some areas, and I'll use, let's talk about the county water authority's situation in their grant. It would have been nice if they had reached out and came to us and collectively and said, hey, we have a need and one of you have the ability to do it. How can we work this out? They put it out, you're right, simply as a commercial contract, not as an intergovernmental relationship. And we're here all, our job is to conserve the environment, which includes soil, water, and everything else that goes with that environment. We three need to work with the other governmental entities that are tasked with delivering these services, such as water, and that impact the environment. And we should be the ones in control of how we deliver that service, either collectively or individually in our areas.
So we have, I know, early on in the process, we had actually asked the water authority if there was an option to have both of us be co-applicants on the RFP. And that was something that the water authority, didn't allow for that RFP process. But what they did offer was the option to subcontract. And so that offer has been extended to Greater San Diego. We would still love to work with you subcontracting.
But I guess that's my point. This is part of the education process. Sorry.
I just have a quick question. Why would they not let both agencies be on it?
I don't know.
They want from that one contract.
I don't
They've
know.
always done it, and it's for that as sort of expediency. They want that one contract.
But
Yeah, we can't explain what the water authority's decisions require.
But I question their ability to grant money with the expectation of service delivery to an organization that doesn't have the authority to provide it in another area.
Well, we've been doing this for 30 years.
But
so I
doesn't
think-
make it right. I understand. We're still in violation of the government code going back 30 years ago, or however long, 56-133 has been on the
Well,
books.
since 2001.
Well,
When this issue came up with the water authority, I don't know if you remember, I questioned it and I was told, well, it's just always been this way. And I let it go. But I did question it because I knew it was kind of before this started, but I knew kind of a little bit of the, I don't know, turf war, but legal turf war, whatever, the whole thing. So, but yeah, just like you said, it's been done for 30 years and water authority said, oh, well, we've always done it this way. I said, well, all right, so, yeah, so I found it very interesting. So,
And I think that's part of the complication is that,
well, it's part of the complication, but, Mission has a cease and desist letter from LAFCO to not to pursue further grants and off those opportunities. And it did. And this most recent one is an example of that this is part of going back to disingenuous. And we felt that move was disingenuous because you have a letter from LAFCO as an agency, you may not have been the administrators and the leadership of the team, but you have something on file that says you can't pursue work outside of your area without the 56-133 process, and that hasn't occurred. And to Gary, you're concerned about that. We want to make sure the services are being delivered. There's a way to do that the right way. We just want to make sure we're doing it the right way. We don't want to slow down the process, but I also disappointed in the county water authority because they were aware that this was an issue. And you know what? They still let it out because we've done it this way for 30 years. And as opposed to sitting down and saying, hey, we're all governmental entities. This doesn't look good on government. This doesn't look good on elected officials or appointed officials who are trying to run the business of this county and make sure we're serving our public when we're not talking and coordinating our activity.
And actually, Arrow on the LAFCO website where it says about with it, I had a hard time finding that information about.
Okay, out of bounds is just.
Yes.
Yeah, there's nothing on the
Is that-
website. There's no current policy. There's no, like what needs to be submitted. There's no fee schedule. And there, I don't know that there has been for a long time, but right now there's nothing that's been on there. And so we've looked it up and requested that information.
Well, there is a current
Yeah,
out of policy boundary policy being discussed right now.
It's the
So,
draft policy. though.
yeah.
Yeah,
So there was nothing up.
there's nothing on the website that's a current policy. though.
okay, I mean, we'll go back and check and make it obviously accessible to the public. I thought it was up, but if it's not,
Well, this was also there.
regardless, duly noted, and we'll make sure that it's accessible online.
Yeah, and it's whatever the current policy is, right?
I appreciate there isn't on there, but I'm going to go back to, there's communication that's put mission on this. And I guess, again, that's a disingenuous part of it.
So from mission's perspective, I mean, again, Darcy and I are both relatively new. So we weren't here for any of the other stuff that happened in the past. All we can do is, look at documents and try and piece things back together. So again, and our intention obviously has been to collaborate. I mean, you two work very well together. Don and I think, we have a lot in common and probably lots of fun stuff to talk about. Ways to really help elevate the RCDs here in the county and probably across the state, as well as you and I have lots of things to talk about of how we can all work together on these things. But I think just from the perspective of mission is making sure that these services are being provided. And so if you guys have the capacity to do that right now, great, cool. We didn't know that. We didn't know that that was an area of service that you currently provide and that you're prepared to provide. And so, with that, again, that's, I guess that's on me for not knowing that. So I mean, my sincere apologies, for not knowing that you guys are ready to like pick up and run with this. So thank you for letting us know that and that you're interested in providing these services. From what I've understood, going back through history, previous leadership, wasn't, had made clear that, you guys weren't interested in providing those services at the time. And so that's sort of where the history of
And
this is coming
I
from.
appreciate that the history of the time was almost 30 years ago. And before we were aware of 56-133, Mission and Greater San Diego had an agreement that was both parties agreed to. Now, LAFCO had no purview, no review, nothing of that. We just thought we're at Dem and Hubby. We thought it was a great arrangement. Through that process and through board change and through staff change, there was a request that said, hey, you're doing this work, and one of the requirements in the MOU is provide an annual report. A request was made for that annual report, and the relationship went sideways from that point on.
And then a report to who?
An annual report to us as a district to show what work you were doing for us in our district on our behalf. And just to let you know, we sent multiple letters asking for the annual report, which was part of that MOA.
So this is during Judy's tenure?
Yes. And I believe the board president was Scott Murray. Okay, and then accelerated that to the point we said, okay, we're terminating our agreement with you. And then that's when we found out that, gee, there's an issue here. You guys had an agreement that wasn't approved by LAFCO. So that's when we got educated. and advise of 56-133, your prior agreement was in violation of state law. So entering into the agreement without approval or review by LAFCO. So again, we're going way back into the history. And I did,
think that was, I think by 2001 was the rewrite of 56133. So things that were done before that time were not, they were exempted. And that's what we
and I,
stated.
and yes, you're right. I appreciate that. But since then, we've continued, and this letter went out while I was on the board 10 to 15 years ago, and that process began. We've been dealing with this for at least 6+ years actively, trying to get this resolved. So my board's frustration is we keep doing this and then there's a leadership change or somebody drops off and then we start the whole process again. And we're at a point where let's follow the law. Let's use that as our guide and move forward. And if there is no policy at LAFCO, we still have to confer with them. And they still have to provide either approval or deny.
And again, I want to stress again, the list of exemptions, whether you qualify or not, it's LAFCO's assertion that we make that decision. And so I think that's where the rub lies, is that organizations and agencies, not just you in particularly, but others over time have made that unilateral decision on themselves, which has created the conflict, which is, from our perspective, LAFCO's the ultimate umbrella overarching decision maker on those services being extended outside your boundaries and, or if you qualify for those exemptions. And we stress that because this is what happens. And so we want to make sure that LAFCO is making that decision through the communication between dual agencies. So again, I just want to stress that.
I have a question about that, because this was something I was thinking right now. Proposal for the water smart program.
And just real quick, 10-minute warning.
Well, just
So,
a quick question.
yeah.
Hopefully you can get the answer.
no, yeah.
But it's, well, how does that process work? So would you need to have approval before you even submit a proposal? Because we were not assured we were going to get that work. This was a competitive contract. Our concept was if we get the award, then we start following that. We use that negotiation period and time period for the contract
Well,
goes-
let me jump in before he answers, but I think before you even go to ask for that approval, we should be a discussion among the 3 players in the county that provide these types of services or has the authority to. So
Was going to lead to my next question is, I guess I have 2 questions maybe to put on the table. One, it sounds like whatever, and I'm not familiar with these programs, but it sounds like one of them was suspended.
But no, well,
No.
It's stalled right now. We have not signed.
Okay,
it.
so my first question is, what is our next step to resolve that immediate crisis on getting that service delivered? Because obviously we have people of concern out in the community that want that to happen. So that's my first question. Then the second question was, what's the greater arching next step to bring this into more of a formal, is it a greater MOU that needs to be developed that, as you said, indicates that we need to discuss with each other, we need to notify with each other? I'm just putting something on the table. I'm trying to play out in my mind what our next step is after today's meeting. And so maybe you can answer the immediate one.
I just have 2 really quick
Okay.
responses. On the second one, so I don't forget it,
Okay,
is that's what this group is supposed to do,
Yeah.
right? Because this is the fallout from the MSR, which basically said, you have, the next 5-year period to cooperate and learn to get along and work. So I think that's what we're doing.
Yep.
The first one was about how do we work together on specifically the water smart contract. And the idea was always that we were going to reach out for subcontracting with you because you don't have staff on board that does this work yet. We're training your ag person, but you don't have someone who does the other.
It's not a program we've done before, but we definitely have the capacity.
we have
within
the
our-
capacity, it's like anything else.
So we would love to, so that was part of the offer, was, to get your staff, trained and familiar with this program because they have, the water sort of has specific requirements, but that was the intention behind this idea of subcontracting, is that we'd make sure that, for our training to your staff to get them up to speed on that, the water smart program. so that they're familiar with it, they're comfortable, and then you guys offer the program services in your district, and we offer it in ours, and then nobody crosses boundaries, and then the whole county is served.
Then how do we make sure Upper San Luis Rey is served too?
And yeah, and if Upper San Luis Rey, however you guys want to, whatever you feel is appropriate to work with that.
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah, are
that's
those
still kind of
specific
a-
to landscape?
It's specific to landscape.
And
Yeah.
tend to tag land too, right?
No, this one's just landscape.
And so the farming program that you have for the irrigation rebates, right? Is that across
So
the
this
county
is the
too?
Waterscape Field Services Program through the County Water Authority. And it's for residential and commercial customers, and it is a rebate program.
Say waterscape,
Waterscape is separate. We don't provide technical assistance on
this
that.
is Water Smart.
Water Smart.
Yeah, so one of the differences in our districts is we have so much agriculture that, I mean, I would think, I grew up out in Palma Valley. I work there every day. I don't know. I think there's large growers who kind of know what they're doing or know how to get these resources that I don't know that they're going to come into the office of the Upper San Luis Rey Resource Conservation District and try to figure out how they can go about this. I don't know how many like landscape, like a Valley Center, Fallbrook are perfect places for like these houses with larger landscapes that you're trying to figure out how to manage or be more efficient or whatever it is. So that's one way we're totally different is there's a lot of great programs and services out there that I don't know that the large growers in our area will necessarily take advantage of just because they kind of feel like they know what they're doing already or they have resources.
Well, then
or-
this is homeowners and, commercial enterprise, this particular.
But it's focused on landscape, not agricultural production.
Correct.
That's in there.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
just.
Maybe
that's
just
separate.
briefly educate me, just so that I'm aware. So the thing that went to the water authority, which caused the consternation, is what program?
Well, we have two programs.
It's like a
for the
landscape
San
audit
Diego
or,
Yeah, it's a landscape audit. It's the water smart program.
so they go out to your
Water
property and say your
Yeah, for
your
homeowners.
irrigation system is efficient or not,
Exactly.
more or less.
Yeah, and you get a
Yeah.
report.
And then that's different than what was paused.
No, that is what.
That's what was paused.
Wait, what's,
Okay.
and what's the other one?
Yeah, what's the other one?
The other one's the ag.
But is that the same thing, like?
So that's exactly, you know about
Yeah.
that. And you have your WETA contract, which is presumably to be taking over some of those evaluations in your district.
But then I think there's something more that, so we don't provide any rebates through WETA except for pump testing for disadvantaged farmers. But I think your ag program does provide some rebate for making improvements on the irrigation system, right? Like we can do an audit and provide feedback on where efficiencies can be found or made, but we don't have funding to do that, to actually do the work.
If I may,
Yeah, please.
the ag program, they, if the farmer goes through that, goes to the audit program, then they're pre-qualified to participate in RCP. There's federal NRCS money available for on-farm improvements. That's the connection.
Oh, but that one's not, that approval, that.
Well,
contract is still
Well, it
not
was,
final.
we had at it, and for some reason, federal government will sign the contract, though it's wash money. to spend.
Yeah.
I don't know. Hang on.
Wow, okay, so the RCP will provide incentives for the farmer ranchers.
After they've been through the audit.
Yeah,
Right.
So what are the next steps? I'm hearing that you guys made some assumptions that they don't have the capacities to provide the services they're saying they do.
Well, we've had conversations about that, because Anne reached out over a year ago and said, hey, we're gonna apply for the CDFA WETA contract, water efficiency and technical. And so she said, we're gonna apply for 1 and 2, we want to get there, and I said, well, I don't have the capacity right now. So I knew she had this contract. We've had conversations since then, because they wanted to train the person that they were going to hire last August, I think. And so we did that, yeah.
But that's for.
I'm
ag.
just trying to find the amenable solution so that Gary leaves this room happy.
So but let me just clarify, but that,
I'd like that.
the stuff that you guys are talking about, I mean, that's ag. And so like, this is landscape, so this is residential and commercial, not ag. Like ag is excluded from this particular program. And so that's
And
where,
the term when you say residential, commercial, you're talking property types, not operations.
correct,
Yeah.
yeah, homeowners, yeah.
Homeowner, property owners that have commercial property and or
No,
residential.
it's homeowners or commercial property.
Kind of, yeah, standard definition for that. And so that's the, that's the current program. that we, love to be able to provide services, for, with you. Ultimately, ASAP, because right now the services aren't being provided, or stalled because we, out of respect for you guys, wanted to reach out and come up with a way to help transition. And the idea behind, the subcontracting is, again, with, being able to provide the training about the specific program to you, it's really to help transition those services to you guys in your district. I mean, that was always the intent, but we wanted to make sure that it was a nice transition so that there wasn't like a stop or like that nobody basically didn't have their sea legs, because that's always an issue from.
And I would have to see, we're gonna have a deeper discussion on that
Well, we
because,
started that.
well, I understand, but that discussion is also gonna have to loop our board in, to be quite honest with you, because of the fact, I love to be able to say at this point, we could just turn over executive director, but that's why I'm here, because the board is not happy with the numerous attempts we've made, and they don't want to keep kicking this can down the road. So going to your point, I think there's a solution, but probably a discussion between the three districts on how we move forward with this and some of the things, what's the term? Is this a 1-year contract? Is this a multi-year
Are you
contract?
talking
Is it-
specifically Water Smart?
I'm talking the one that we need to address right now.
Yeah.
which
Yeah,
is
water for
financing.
water smart. So we reached out, and we actually had like asked if we could come in and present this information and the subcontracting, option potentially, to your board for your board meeting. We haven't heard back, so I don't know if that's something that you would like us to be there for
Well,
and formally provide that information.
Ann and I probably need to have a conversation offline.
Okay.
And I am aware of your request. I wasn't aware that it was focused on the handoff of this program in our area. That changes. Yeah, the impression I got was more of a general
Yeah,
presentation. So if it's specific to handing off this program, let's afterwards have a conversation how we get that accomplished.
Okay.
Okay, but let's fast track it, because again, our board's intent is not to stop something that's in midstream. But what we don't want is somebody else open up another gate valve and put more water into the stream. So using water analogy, Gary.
And that's why that's why we were, that's why we reached out to you guys immediately after the contract was approved. Because, again, nothing is done until it's done, so once it's actually real,
Right.
then we immediately, like within less than an hour, reached out to you guys. And started that, wanted to start that conversation. So we just haven't heard anything back officially. And so that's where I know there's frustration on that, but we've been, we really wanted, we still really want to work with you guys on that. And that's why at the moment, we haven't signed that contract. We're waiting because we'd like to honor
So
it.
look-
I'll just give you
Yeah.
less than 1 minute of a description about what this program is so that you understand. So the Water Authority wants to have one contractor. And that's
Okay. That's where they're at. I get that.
Okay.
No, if they're looking at just one contract, I think what we need to talk about, if this is the one contract that we're going to resolve this with, to move forward, so we don't delay the.
I was just going to describe what the program
Okay,
is, so you
sorry.
understand the program.
Sure, I
So it's
apologize.
the Water Smart Field Services Program. It's an administrative contract where there's the administrative component, which is the scheduling and the invoicing and the reporting. And then there's the evaluation component where we have an irrigation evaluator who is trained and knows what they're doing. They go out there to have a multi-task checklist. They go out to check all that. They check the sprinkler head, they check watering, they check the controls, everything. And then they put all that into a report. There's a handheld device that sends that back to for invoicing and for reporting. And then that's the scope of the work. So there's two main things. There's the evaluation aspect and there's the-
Each retaliation is a portion of that.
that's right.
If we budget.
Within your local budget.
Yes.
So,
And not every member district participates, so the majority.
Is there a preclusion in that contract for subcontracted?
Yeah.
Services?
Yes.
Yeah,
Make
we-
sure that the-
Yeah, we
You
confirmed that.
can't
No,
subcontract.
we can't.
Okay,
we can't.
That's
We're
what,
good.
it's interesting.
Yeah, we can. And the water authority, would like us to work together.
well, again, and then how long, we'd have to have some further discussions, because I think how long's the contract? What portion of, how much work do you anticipate seeing in our area? What have you done? So that's one thing I don't have visibility on, because we've asked for based off the former MOA between the two districts, where are we at with, so I need an idea, what percentage of work is being done?
Will you just be in touch with me and let me know what it is,
Well-
and I'll try and get that to you before.
I don't mean, we're drilling down into the weeds, but I think we need to have a
Let me
conversation.
just wrap this up, because I think you are drilling down. It sounds like there's a will and need to have further communications. Sounds like Don and Ann need to have internal discussion first, which would then prompt notification to you guys to kind of sit down and then have a more open dialogue of what those next steps are, including Andy and Amy in those discussions. And with the immediate need to try to find solution to this immediate issue as soon as possible. So we'll keep that on the record that you guys need to open up those discussions with the caveat that this isn't just another example that we're coloring over the overarching issue that we're all here for to resolve, that we don't have these discussions then now and then into the future, so that and so forth. So I'll keep it at that. And I'll probably keep this on as an agenda item for our next one, because it sounds like we need to have further discussions on this topic and what those next steps are for the greater overarching issue, putting some sort of framework together so that we don't find ourselves in this room having that same discussion. So.
And the one thing I want to share, because I've already had this discussion where the outcome to address the most immediate need, which is the water audits, does not set precedents on where we go with our interpretation and application of 56133. Okay, just for the record.
David, real quick, can you check if any members of the public have any comments to 5D?
I received no,
Nothing online, and Gary?
Thank you. In defense of everybody in the room, the strict adherence to 56113, and just occurred recently. Changes in LAFCO. I remember sitting in the room with the fire districts hammering out automatic aid agreements, mutual aid agreements. I don't remember LAFCO or even concerned about it.
There's exemption to fire contracts.
There's an exemption specifically and under health.
But that's my point.
Yeah.
That's my point. And we have a countywide mutual aid agreement among water agencies. I don't remember having asked LAFCO about that. It's exempt, I understand. So in my view, however you guys work this out, I think there's an easy solution to it if you want to. It's the services to our customers. We're about to enter into a very severe drought event. And if these services aren't available, people can't figure out how to live within it, a 25 or 30 or 40% reduction in their water supply. Because of this, I think that's a failure of public service. So I hope you guys can get together. I just heard a solution. They could subcontract. That's the solution.
And it's one solution. And there's,
And it's a quick solution.
and you're right, and I'm not arguing.
That's my comments.
Right. Perfect. Okay, now we'll close this out for 5D. We'll real quickly move to 5E, future meeting locations. So Alex, are you there? Can you kind of just really quickly, 30 seconds, kind of go over our current rules on what's required by the LAFCO Commission now and state law of why we're all meeting in person, but also having this hybrid approach of members of the public and or people like yourself that can attend virtually?
Sure thing, Adam. Well, so first, in terms of meeting location, it always has to be within the jurisdiction of the district or the agency. In this case, because it's LAFCO, it can be countywide. So that provides us that flexibility. The commission voted at its last meeting to no longer approve that AB 361 authority to meet virtually for everybody due to the emergency. And they took note of the fact that the governor is going to end the state of emergency on February 28th. So they want to get the ball rolling on meeting in person. So now all members of the commissions or committees have to meet in person. And staff, because we're not members of the committees or commissions, can participate virtually at the direction of Keene. And if someone wants to participate virtually, if a commissioner or a committee member wants to participate virtually, as of January 1st, they're going to have 3 options. First option is they could use the default rules under the Brown Act, which means they'll have to notice their location and make it open to the public. Second option is if there's an emergency circumstance, like you have some kind of, you get sick or you get injured, a need to like go to the hospital, but like you could still participate. You can use that emergency circumstance, and you just need to consult. You just need to reach out to us first before you use that. And then third is I'm forgetting the term it's used. I think it's something like urgent need. And basically that's like if you're not feeling well, or if you have to take care of a family member, or if you're traveling on LAFCO business, you can participate virtually too. And again, you'll need to let us know before the agenda comes out. And those are the three ways that members of this body can meet virtually, but otherwise everyone has to meet in person.
Alex, thanks for the clarification. So which leads to my question to you guys. Do you guys want to keep meeting here since it's centrally located to the 3 RCDs? Or is there some sort of rotational meeting point that we would like?
Can Amy meet here, just not today?
Yeah, she's working on some deadlines, I guess. I like this location, but did you guys drive the farthest?
Frank did.
Frank did.
Yeah.
So did I.
Yeah, it's okay. It works.
The other option, yeah, would be a rotating type, but I mean, for me,
We would calendar it in advance enough. That's the most difficult things for me. If I can put on my calendar now. So I know
Same, yeah.
we pull something up like the next 3 days, that's difficult.
All right, sounds like consensus. Let's meet here ongoing and with the note to get our calendars synced up as quickly as possible. So it's amenable for everybody to work through the calendars to attend. Good question. I don't know the answer to that. I mean, maybe
As needed?
as needed. I mean, I was,
Does LAFCO have a goal for us to get done by a certain time and to give a report?
I don't think there's a specific date, but I think we kind of generally use the term sometime in the spring next year. So, yeah, so I was thinking meeting monthly, if not at the worst case scenario, meeting every 6 weeks.
Well, this is the second Friday. I'm all about trying to keep things. Can we just keep it on the second Friday at 10 o'clock? Actually, could we even meet earlier?
Earlier would be amazing.
I'd rather,
So you're saying January 13th,
sure,
9 a.m.?
yeah, or 8, 7.
So we're saying,
Oh, you and I have the same schedule. I'm like 7 o'clock. sounds great.
Yeah,
Break the chickens, wake you up.
I'm telling you.
What was
I
that,
get up with
Darcy?
the farmers.
Nothing, January 16th is coming fast.
January
January
13th.
13th?
13. So that's a month from now.
Well, considering there's some things we need to work on collectively,
Yeah.
individually, I don't have a problem with, let's hold it the 13th, let's schedule it the 13th. And if anything, we have an opportunity to delve into the most immediate issue, which is resolving the water audit. So we can move forward. And then let's just look at the second Friday there afterwards. Everybody good with that?
February.
So we put a hold on the
So
13th.
tentative holds January 13th, February 10th,
Yeah,
with the caveat that you guys will keep us informed on your communications to hold that meeting as
Then-
confirmation that those communications have taken place.
if you could just send out a calendar
Yeah.
invite for a hold even,
Yep.
that's
When
fine.
did we agree 10 o'clock still? Or did
I heard 9.
I heard
At least,
9,
we agree?
I mean, I prefer 7 or 8, but that's okay.
so do I, but people complain about that.
Compromise,
Yeah.
9 a.m.
Yeah, I know I probably killed Gary for a while at the water authority with those 8 o'clock meetings.
Right, not that we're at 6 o'clock.
I know, but
Okay, just real quick, we'll wrap this up. Moving to 5F, is there any other comments or requests from committee members to add anything to the agenda or move forward on anything?
Not yet.
We'll conclude that item and that adjourns our meeting at 11:45 a.m.